Mike Upton's the Chief Executive of Group 5. It's been a good day, no doubt, Mike. You've reported 36% growth in revenues, operating profits up 25%, dividends up 24%, and for the year to end June, you've also given shareholders today their annual report, which is quite sensational that you managed to bring out a incredibly detailed annual report on the same day that you bring your financial results out. That's the good news. The bad news is the annual report also gives people like me an opportunity to read a little more into the results. And from what one can see, you've made some big bets. You've expanded your staff, you've expanded your capacity, and you've gone through, which all went well for the first half of the financial year. But the second half of the financial year, things started turning down a little. And the question has to be, have you overreached?
Alec, thank you. No, I think certainly we've had a vigorous growth in the construction sector right through the year. In fact, obviously, sort of 40-50% growth. So, and I think also understand that in our industry, there's quite a low fixed cost in terms of quite a lot of the people are there on contracts related to particular sort of scope of work. So certainly our fixed costs, in fact, in the half, we've actually reduced our fixed costs by going through a bit of a cost-cutting sort of rationalization of head office and of those business units which possibly were in more sort of testing times. So
Mike, you've got 14,000 staff. Are they temporary staffing?
A lot of them are on contract, and a lot of them obviously are sort of limited duration contracts, and that goes right through to site managers and so on.
So how would that work? If you're building, say, the Durban Stadium, would you have people employed specifically for that project?
Yes, we would.
And they're not full-time staff?
They're not
when the project ends, they have to look for another job?
That's correct.
But isn't that a big question mark then over what happens when the construction or the flurry in construction turns down?
Well, obviously, what we're seeing already in terms of the end of the 2010 sort of stadiums, and obviously the little bit of a hiatus between then and the next batch of infrastructure projects. I mean, employment in the sector will drop, for a period of time, whilst we're obviously looking at what the next sort of 18 months to sort of 24 months might look like.
But according to your annual report, you guys are holding firm at the moment. You're expecting that there will be a turnaround in 2010, 2011, a global economic turnaround. You're a bit out on a limb there.
What we've said is that we can only look at what we see. And what we see is an environment where there's about 200-odd billion of infrastructure to come from government, as opposed to the 787, which I think has been overcooked. But certainly the amount of money that would flow down to the larger construction groups, about 220-odd billion.
Just to slow there a little. The 787 is the number that's used in the headlines. Are you saying that is, when overcooked, it's overstated?
Well, the 787 is actually all of the government infrastructure spend, if you like, in terms of municipal and sort of government departments. What we've done is actually we stripped out the PPPs, which is about 38 billion, and we stripped out the state-owned enterprises, which is about 397 billion. And we applied a factor to each as to what portion of that revenue or that budget would actually flow to construction as opposed to the supply of equipment or financial costs and so on. And to that number we also added about 40 billion, which was the announced special budget for affordable housing. If you do the sums, you get to about 222 billion as opposed to the 787. So that is really the number around which the larger groups would look at over a period of, was it 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? And in that environment, we've looked, and currently what's visible and of interest to Group 5, is about 30 billion of that. And so we need to obviously go and secure a portion of that as to what we can see. So it's not going to blow the lights out, but it keeps the fires burning for a period of time whilst obviously the global economy may recover. We might see an improvement in the resources sector in the next 12, 18 months. Perhaps a recovery in consumer markets in a period beyond that. So we're looking at a number of cycles there, which in the super cycle sort of coexisted, and in this sort of period right now have not all been active at the same time.
You say in your annual report that South Africa's got the world's third largest infrastructure program. Isn't that overcooked?
That is not our information. That comes from independent research.
I'd love to know where the research is, because if you compare us with the US and China, Are you saying from the rest of the world, South Africa is number 3?
In terms of for sure the stimulus sort of packages which were applied in Europe and the US, and compared to what was a government organised, if you like, or sort of pre-planned expenditure, the South African spend is deemed to be the third best in the world, or the third largest in the world.
China is spending twice as much as the total South African economy just this year.
Yeah.
So it does seem a little out of kilter. Anyway, you made the statement. You've kind of backed it up now.
Sure.
But looking ahead for the challenges outside of South Africa, it appears as though South Africa is pretty strong, but some of your other opportunities not so good. West Africa has been tailing off there, and the Middle East in particular. Can we spend some time there? You did lose 4 billion rands worth of turnover in the Middle East in this financial year through cancelled contracts. Are they coming back?
Well, the 4 billion rand, as you said, was in the Middle East, mostly in Dubai. We've cut back that infrastructure. We're now about a sort of 600 to 800 billion rand business, and it's trading profitably on a much lower base. We have won some new smaller contracts in the last 6 months or so. We are looking, obviously, at the infrastructure which is going on in the Middle East. Now, whilst we were very busy in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, there's a lot more to the Middle East than those two places. So I think in the sort of year ahead, we need to look beyond Abu Dhabi and beyond Dubai. And that's
you're not in Saudi Arabia, are you?
We're not in Saudi, but it's obviously of interest, and a few other of the countries in that region.
But coming back to your strategy, which is almost it's a construction conglomerate. You like to do everything from beginning to end.
Yeah, we call it an integrated infrastructure group, yeah.
We can understand it, Dave. We understand it better with conglomerate. It's like Joffy's conglomerate. He's got lots of things in Bidvest.
I would say it's different, though, Alec, in terms of the fact that each of those
vertically
things feed
integrated
each other. There we
conglomerate.
go. Now we're talking.
Okay. This vertically integrated conglomerate would suggest that you've got lots of pieces in the chain, but if the whole chain gets weak, then it's really going to hit you twice as hard.
Obviously, there is a focus to the business, so it's not a complete sort of conglomerate, as you've indicated, but there's quite a lot of synergy in the organisation. But if the theme in which we're operating falls down, absolutely, there is obviously an impact.
Are the divisions working well with each other?
They are. There's a number in fact, a growing number of contracts where 2 or 3 or 4 of Group 5's business units actually enjoy some revenue.
How do you get that spunbo going?
That's tough. Family business is not easy business, but you have to use a carrot and a stick.
Just to close off with, you've got John Job and Stuart Morris on the board, both in their 60s. They've seen it. They've seen lots of these cycles. How are they describing what's happening at the moment?
I think they're very supportive of the strategy of diversification. I think also, we have a long-term investment theme as well as a short-cycle business in terms of manufacturing, so it's a nice mix.
But are they saying that they've seen this all happen before and you're on the right path, just stick with it, or are they saying, whoops, this could be new?
They're supportive of the strategy and of the management. I know no differently.